I've got a very well prepared speech here, but I'll jump around from the speech, because I never know if the staff that prepared the speech for me is here, and if I don't stick to some part of the speech, they get very angry. But the first message is that I'd like to really thank you for inviting us as a Department of Science and Technology at this conference. And also, as you have already heard, we have a good relationship that goes many, many years between the Department of Science and Technology, the Da Vinci Institute, and the Technology Top 100. And it's a relationship that we value truly, and I'll tell you why. In this relationship, of course, we support the awards, which we have been supporting for quite some time. But I do remember that a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, we then asked Da Vinci Institute to host interns within the Da Vinci and the companies that they work with. And these were young people, most of whom came from rural parts of South Africa, had never seen a computer. But through your generosity, we have been told, Professor Anderson, that 60% of those students have now been placed, some in your companies, and others they've been able to find work in the private sector. And there's nobody who has complained that they don't have a sense of what needs to happen in the private sector. So we are extremely, extremely grateful to you for your generosity. I actually don't know what has happened to this program, but we will be knocking on your doors to see whether we can continue with this internship program, because we think it is an extremely and an important partnership that we want to continue with you. I also want to state that recently, last year, in fact, the minister was at the awards, the Innovation Technology 100 Business Awards. And we are extremely happy with these awards and would like to continue to support them. One of the issues we've raised with the professor is that we read our constitution carefully. And one of the requests that we have made is that we need to make sure that as we support these companies and as they continue to show greatness in their achievements, can we also do this something in South Africa which sometimes we are scared of? Transformation. So we've started to put a little bit of request to Da Vinci to see whether we can get more black companies as well in the process, but also to really target them because they are out there. We work, for instance, with the Department of Trade and Industry through the Black Industrialist Program, through the Gazelles program at the IDC, supported by the economic development. They are out there. So we would like to continue to see more black companies, women-owned companies, as well as part of the program. I was going to talk about why we like the TIPS model and the rigorous process that I think underpins, I think, the adjudication process for this. But I think Tsepo has already talked about this and taken you through the refresher course, so I will not talk about it anymore. But I do like to say that we know that about 4 months ago, the Da Vinci Technology Top 100 Awards program attracted over 379 entries in 6 categories, including the management of technology, innovation, people, systems, as well as sustainability and innovation concept. And we are told that a total of 91 category finalists were selected following, as I said, this rigorous face-to-face adjudication process, which culminated in a total of 28 category winners being selected as the top performing innovators in Technology 100. The reason why I'm mentioning then this third point is that it is important for us as a department, and that's one of the reasons we partner with you, to showcase the fact that technology and innovation does help companies and do make companies to be competitive, and they can get better products into the marketplace. I'm also told that at this conference, some of the winners will be demonstrating their competencies within the TIPS leadership framework, showcasing why they were recognized at the Technology Top 100 Business Innovation Awards in 2017 in the different categories. As I've said, I may not be here when that happens, but I do know that one of my colleagues will be here. I now want to move on to something that we talked about, and we agreed that in these meetings, maybe as a department, we should also talk about why we think it is important for government to continue to commit in supporting the private sector. Most of you would know that in 1996, the White Paper for Science and Technology was published, and one of the things that this white paper proposed is that in South Africa we can only really improve our economic performance if we set up what is called the National System of Innovation. So it's a set of institutions and policies that work in unison in order to drive innovation between the public sector as well as in the private sector. So we've continued to try and honor this commitment and to see whether this vision can be achieved. And through, of course, this vision, we are committed to support the private sector. And we have some instruments that I'd like to quickly share with you. Most of you would know that we have a very generous R&D tax incentives where the private sector companies could claim back to the state up to 150% of tax if that is for the R&D that was performed in South Africa. We will be hosting a breakfast meeting with the brand new minister on Friday on how we can improve, I think, this program and how the companies can continue to benefit from it. At the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, we have a program which we call a Tech Localization Implementation Unit that supports small, medium enterprises on the knowledge and know-how if they want to improve their products, especially if those products can support the competitiveness supplier development program, which is mainly a program of state-owned companies that are procuring in some of the build programs that they are involved with. And then the third program I wanted to share with you is the Technology Innovation Agency-run program, which is called the Technology Stations. So it's a program where, again, it's run by this agency, but it provides knowledge for any solution that you might need through partnership with the universities, both of technology and straightforward universities or traditional universities. We've also initiated the Sector Innovation Funds program, and this program is designed to target certain sectors of the economy and work with the private sector to identify challenges that they might have, and then government puts a rand. The unfortunate thing, Prof, is that it expects the private sector to put at least 50 cents for every rand that we put. But we've already started this in some subsectors of agriculture. We are having a conversation with the Chamber of Mines, and they've agreed in principle to support this program because the mining of the future will not be done in the same way as the mining of the past, and therefore, how do we do the mining, not only mining, but even the identification of ore bodies and how you can extract it maximally with the use of technology. And the last instrument that I want to talk to you about is an instrument which we call the Sovereign Innovation Fund. The ones that I've been talking about are demand-led, so people in the sectors, but we also support people who may have ideas that have not been in the marketplace before and that they would like to commercialize. And this Sovereign Innovation Fund is a scheme that we are setting up. It will be a public-private partnership, and we've already spoken to a number of banks that are interested in providing you with commercialization funding for ideas that you want to put in the marketplace. So I'd like to conclude then by saying that we are committed to supporting the private sector. We would like you to take advantage of some of the instruments that I have talked about. Please, either our website or come and talk to me directly. I'm always available, and people are surprised that as a Director General we do this, and that we are forever grateful for the partnership that we have with yourself. So now, if you are kind enough to allow me then to switch to the address of the presentation that I would like to do, I hope I'll be able to use this. I was asked to talk about a little bit on the fourth industrial revolution. So the presentation is in two parts. The first part is perhaps to assume that not everybody in the room is aware what it is. So we'll just flip through that very quickly. And then the second part begins to talk about some of the things that we are doing in South Africa that we would like you to take advantage of as part of engaging in this new industrial revolution. Okay. So we all know that it is really driven by the convergence of a number of technologies. What you see in this slide is a series of technologies: robots, big data, augmented reality, additive manufacturing, and so forth and so forth. So it is really a combination of the physical systems as we understand them with the cyber systems. And this expresses itself in many technologies and how they are transforming different industries. What we're showing here is, again, the biological systems where you see the DNA. I had the opportunity last year to visit EPFL, which is an institution based in Switzerland, and they were telling me the work that they were doing. Two of these I'd like to maybe quickly share with you. The first one is they were simulating how the brain works. And they told us that they had been able to achieve at least 10% understanding of how the brain works. So still 90% of understanding. So what they do is they send electrical impulses into this computer, and they also simulate chemical impulses, and then they see how the brain, which is simulated in this computer, works. And they told us that even though they understand only 10%, they are able to treat some of the diseases which cannot be treated today, such as the Alzheimer's and many other diseases. So again, here is an example of a cyber physical biological system that shows that people are going to solve problems that we've not been able to solve before. And then the second one was what they call an intelligent prosthesis. So in other words, you don't just put a prosthesis here, but it begins to have neural responses that teaches it how your system actually works, and then over a period of time, it's able to make sure that you have an artificial hand that doesn't just work mechanically, but it responds to you. This is just one example, and there are many other examples. So this is what the future is going to look like. The next slide is a slide which, again, in the department they want me to talk about, but I don't want to be spending time on it. What it shows is just the evolution of the different types of revolution, starting from the steam engine, the expansion of the industrialization in the US and Britain, the introduction of the integrated circuits, and of course where we are at the moment. The bottom one is a Japanese model and how they see this industrial revolution evolving over the number of years. You will see that these are different. I know you can't see everything. But at the heart of this is that when these industrial revolutions come, each country engages with it in a different way. The Japanese are not worried about the new technologies that are base technologies for the fourth industrial revolution. They are worried about what kind of society there will be when 40% of the work is done by robots, when the cars are driving themselves, when some of the diseases can be cured, and therefore you have a society that lives up to 150 years. So that's what they are focusing, and therefore you'll see that in Japan they are worried about something they call Society 5.0, but if you go to Germany, they talk about Industry 4.0. So this is just something that the academics are spending a lot of time trying to convince us which is which. But I think the message is that as we engage with this fourth industrial revolution, it is important for us to look at our context in South Africa and find a way of engaging with it in a way that is in line with the context we find ourselves in. And then this is the first offer that I'd like to share with yourself. This is a product lifecycle management platform, and you can again see it for yourself. It involves design, simulation, tooling, machining, and so forth and so forth. This is a platform that is hosted at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, because we are aware that not all small medium enterprises could begin to look at how they prepare their products in this manner. So it's available, and you are more than welcome to approach the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research for this facility. But as we do that, let's also understand the nature of manufacturing as a result of the fourth industrial revolution. What I'd like to show in this slide is that in the 70s and the 2000s, if you look at the pre-production, post-production, and the pre-production in terms of the intangible and tangible, there are shifts in the manufacturing sector. What you see in this slide is that the increase in the R&D and the design in the 2000 is much, much higher than in the 70s. And then you can also see that the same in the pre and after sale service. How many of us are worried about our cars and our cell phones when we have them? I will never take my car to a mechanic that I find from the street. Why do you have to take it in? Because it's so complicated with the engine and the sensors you have. I mean, the first thing they tell you is that we can't tell you how much you're going to pay for the service because they have to plug in between your seats a computer system that is going to check what the system is. So this is an example, and again, this is highlighted in this diagram. Maybe you can't see it, but it also shows that there's a dotted line here that shows that the activities in the pre-production activities is much higher because of visualization and the design optimization and making sure that in instances where you are fusing different materials, you spend a lot more time and then you produce and then you spend a lot of time. So these are shifts that are already happening as a result of digitalization. I wanted to then say to you again, in South Africa, in your own country, we've already started to work with Aerosuit, which is an aerospace company, is one of the major suppliers of some of the components to Airbus and Boeing. This is a facility at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. It's basically a laser that melts the powder at the nozzle, and therefore it's able to produce these components, not by assembling them, but by making them as 3D printed materials. We are now two things. We are having some of these components being validated by Airbus and Boeing, and they will tell us if they are happy. If they are happy, then they will be sold to them. And then we are also commercializing this facility because there are many, many customers outside South Africa that have an interest to buy this facility. Maybe I'd like to stop here and ask people in the room, how many of you remember a company called Olivetti? Where is that company now? I happened to go to Italy, in Turin, where this company was, I think about 6 months ago. Well, they showed us at the Polytechnic in Turin a facility similar to this. And what they were producing is they were producing blades for the aircraft engines, that goes into the engine. And they told us that through digitalization, they are able to design the blade, put it into the computer, and get a machine like this to produce the blades, and the blades are attached to the component that then drives the turbines for the aircraft. And for them to do that, they only need 50 parts instead of 850 parts that you need if you produce manufacturing in the olden days. So the obvious question is, where are the people who are producing the 800 parts? Where is Olivetti today? Get my message? So we have to embrace these new technologies and start thinking about how we're going to do this. The next slide is just a slide which you are all familiar with. It just shows the size of the sub-industries in the ICT sector, connectivity in terms of billions of rands, enabling technologies, and we have examples here: online services, content, and user interface. Of course, the innovation in these ICT sectors enable multiple industries, and again, if we have more time, we can talk about that. But what I do like to talk about is what we've done in South Africa, where we have developed an ICT roadmap. And this roadmap is focused on a couple of themes. One is broadband infrastructure. We are looking at future wireless technology and broadband because it's not going to have fiber everywhere. We're looking at development where we're looking at inclusion, development, and some applications in agriculture. You are aware that farmers today are already having drones that are taking the soil moisture, and they are able to tell you when you can, irrigate your crops. There are other technologies that can tell you upfront because of the seasonal predictions from far before and after how your maize or your crop is going to look like. These are some of the things that are being done. And then sustainability and development, of course, these are sensors that we're looking at to monitor the environment, satellite sensors and other Earth observation sensors, and make sure that we have global change. I don't know how many of you know that if the average global temperature is 2 degrees in Southern Africa, it's going to be 4 degrees. And what does that mean for your grazelands and many, many, many other biophysical parameters we have to worry about. And then also, as you know, that we are building a big astronomy facility in the Northern Cape. A lot of you probably think of it as an astronomy. We think of it as a big ICT machine because it's going to collect large amounts of data. It has to process it and give astronomers a sense of what it is. So the engine of this thing is the ICT engine. And we have discovered that the amount of data that has got to be processed means that you don't have the computer that can process this data. So we've been working with a number of private sector companies, setting up a center for broadband, for instance, at the Nelson Mandela University. And then, as I say, the list goes on. So this is work that is already happening in South Africa, and we'll be more than happy again to share this with yourself. We were hoping to, for each of these applications, to generate large amounts of money, and we continue to lobby the private sector for the resources that are needed for the areas that I've shown. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm here, if some of you have got big pockets. This is an app that we, through the funding and through the institutions that we have, if you now go to Cape Town or Joburg, if you want to get a sense of, on your app, when the bus will come, the routes, and now you can do this. But we have invested in developing human beings to help us at the CSIR on something which we call data science for impact and decision. So this one, of course, is in the metro, but of course this goes beyond that. And then they've also been doing work on something which is called TV white spaces. Not all the spectrum for the transmission of TV signals is being used, so the ones that are not being used are called TV white spaces. Can we tap onto it and use it for something else? At the moment, something again that I'd like to invite you to is this Converging Technologies platform. We already have invested in a number of base technologies in South Africa over a number of years, which are the building blocks of the fourth industrial revolution. But it is not only these. We actually need a Converging Technologies platform where you can begin to look at the applications in the various areas. So we are setting this thing up at the Council for Scientific Industrial Research. Again, it's a private partnership arrangement where we'll be inviting private sector companies for the applications that they need, whether it's in the manufacturing, digitalization, or any application for that matter. We've just signed off on the funding to set this thing up at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. But let's remember that it's not all good news. The more we open into this cyber-physical system, the more we are susceptible to people who get into our systems and get into our banking system, so we should keep that in mind. Of course, there's a cybersecurity program that we have in the country, but also there's a lot of identity theft. You can see this is the person, the real person, but his head has been chopped off through the computer, and then you see this person with a new face, so these things are happening. And you can say, no, it's not my Twitter account, it wasn't me, but it might be too late. So these are some of the things that we need to worry about and talk about, but we are working on them. And then, of course, these are some of these disruptive technologies that have really wiped some of the businesses, whether it's in the taxi industry, in the Uber, or whether it's, I can't remember, it's in the accommodation business, Trivago, Hotel Trivago. So there are a number of businesses, so it is important for you to also think about what it could do. This is just a slide that shows that depending on which of the businesses you are, in the knowledge services, you are likely to be disrupted, and in the services, and less so in the secondary and the primary industries. But you still have to engage in this fourth industrial revolution. So in conclusion then, the digitalization and this digital disruption are a reality. Whether we like it or not, we have to embrace them with the context that we have in South Africa. We are investing as a Department of Science and Technology on some of the building blocks, and we would like you to come and invest and take advantage of this platform that we are doing. And then, of course, we want to work with the South African industry so that they can benefit from the public investment that we're making. So I think with those few words, then I'd like to welcome you to this session, and I hope you'll have a great day. And I sincerely apologize. I hope I didn't overstep the mark. I think you gave me 30 minutes. I suspect I did it in 25. Thanks.